Hey everyone, today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite Superman stories. Yes, some people consider Superman to be boring. I do not believe that. I believe that the level of how interesting Superman is dependent on the skill of the writer. So if Superman is considered to be boring, it's because the writer is not creative enough to tell an interesting story about the character. Yes, I do like Superman more than Batman, and I'm gonna stick by that assertion. So today, I'm just going to list off a few stories. Obviously, you can see this one right back here. All-Star Superman is by far one of the most interesting Superman stories that's been published ever. Yes, it was written by Grant Morrison. Some people say he's overhyped or his books are just too meta, but this is honestly a very well-crafted Superman story. It has everything that you can ever want. It mixes the classic Silver Age Superman with a modern story, a modern form of storytelling. Grant Morrison always finds a way to use the corny Silver Age classic stories while mixing them in a modern narrative very effectively, which I've always thought was impressive. It seriously is a story that any Superman fan should read. Now, if you're an intro-level comic book reader, if you haven't read comics before, or if you are planning to start eventually, this is not the first book that I would recommend. It's very interesting, it's complex, it's heartfelt. There are a lot of funny, laugh-out-loud, and emotional moments, but there's a lot going on for someone who's not really familiar with comic books in general. Also, Frank Quietly's art is just stellar. Now, the book I would recommend for beginning comic book fans is a book created by the team behind Batman: The Long Halloween, one of the best Batman stories ever. This is Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Also, Bjarne Hansen with the colors. This is a very classic Superman story. It's heartfelt, like the previous story that I talked about, but it also shows Superman in different perspectives. You have 4 chapters, one of his parents, one from Lois Lane, one from Lex Luthor, and one from someone else who I am blanking on at the moment. But everything about this story is very beautiful. It's gripping, and if you've never read Superman before, this will sink its hooks into you and drag you along for a very entertaining ride. Now, the thing is, it's very accessible to anyone. You can just hand this to someone who's never read comic books before, and they will hopefully enjoy it. It's not very long, it's not complex, and the story is one that people can relate to, although, you know, most people aren't aliens from another planet who were sent here in a rocket. It makes Clark more relatable. He's afraid of growing up, he's afraid of his powers. He goes on first dates, he goes to dances in school, he grows up, goes to college, gets a job, moves to the city. There are things that it mixes everyday life with the life of a superhero, and Superman doesn't even show up until the end of the first chapter. The art style is great too. It's very cartoony, but it fits well with Superman. He looks very swollen, and his eyes are shut, which I always thought was weird from the classic comics. Characters like Superman and Captain Marvel would always run around with squinted eyes. But like the cover says, it's a story of Superman during all 4 seasons of the year. There are a lot of emotional moments in this, and every character is written with their own distinct voice. And it's simple enough to read that beginning comic book fans would enjoy it very well. My next favorite story is actually one of the 2 stories collected in this volume, and the one I'm talking about is Superman, Last Son of Krypton. It was written by Jeff Johns and Dick Donner, who directed the first Superman movie, and I thought it was awesome. This story is supposed to be, I believe, the sequel to the second movie, or the sequel to the first movie. This is what Dick Donner would have done if they had the special effects, and if they gave him full creative freedom over Superman when he was making the movies back in the day. Now, the art is done by Adam Kubert of the Kubert family, and it has everything you would want out of a Superman story. There's nothing in there that's going to throw you off too much. This isn't New 52 Superman. That's probably the one that most people are in agreement with about being the least popular version of the character. It's like Christopher Reeve's Superman in a comic book, which is great. And the story is about Superman and Lois, who are married at this point, adopt a Kryptonian boy who crash-landed on Earth, and they raise him as their son. And a lot of Superman characters show up in this. You have General Zod, Lex Luthor, Bizarro, Parasite, Metallo. And it's a very interesting story. It's funny, it's sad. If you love the 2 recommendations that I made before, you're going to love this one. Another bonus one that came in this volume is Superman Brainiac, which is pretty much the story of Injustice 2, or the animated Superman movie that came out a while back. I think it's Superman Unchained. I think that's right. Anyway, Superman, Last Son of Krypton. I can't get tired of the story. This is probably the one that I've read the most. And my final Superman story actually came out recently. This is part of the DC Rebirth run. It's actually a Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman story, obviously, like it says on the title right there, the Trinity. But it shows you how the Rebirth Superman, who's the classic Superman from the original continuity, is how he's handling life, and how the other characters view him, because he's very different from the Clark from the New 52. It's a very interesting story. It focuses around Clark for a lot of the first couple of issues. A lot of it takes place on Cat Farm. And it's interesting because you get to see Superman in a new light. You get to see him interact with his family, and also you get to see him interact with 2 of the most popular characters that DC has to offer, Batman and Wonder Woman. Now, you can pick this up in trade, I believe. I think it collects the first 5-6 issues or so. Highly recommend all of these volumes. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, leave comments in the comment section for any recommendations that you have that you want me to review. I'm open to reviewing almost anything. And if you want to find the channel on Twitter, please look for it at Awesome Heralds. Thanks for watching.